many of us were looking for a place to live.
Habíamos gente, por ejemplo, yo vivía en el centro de la ciudad, pero alquilábamos un cuarto muy pequeño. Teníamos agua potable por pocas horas y luz solo teníamos de 6 de la tarde para 9 de la noche. Vivíamos en un cuarto muy pequeño. Yo soy la cuarta de 8 hermanos, mi papá y mi mamá, y a veces teníamos visita.
So many people were renting a room in the center of Guatemala, and we were struggling to pay for the rent for this room, and we had light, like energy, only from 6 in the evening to 9 in the evening, and we only had water for a couple of hours every day, so the conditions were not good at all.
Y también mucha gente vino a este lugar de la esperanza porque en los años 80 había una guerra civil en Guatemala, entonces estaban huyendo del conflicto armado.
And some of the people came to La Esperanza because they were fleeing from the country areas because of the war. Guatemala had a civil war, and it was fought in the country, so the indigenous people were fleeing the areas. So some of these people came to live in this community because of that. That's just a little bit of the side information.
Fue una situación bastante difícil porque en esta comunidad, pues como era una invasión, un lugar abandonado, no teníamos ningún servicio como luz, no habían calles, drenajes, pero lo más difícil para sobrevivir era que no tuvimos agua potable.
And it was a very difficult situation because in this community, since we were invading this abandoned piece of land, there were no services. There was no electricity, there were no roads, no water, and that was probably the hardest. We didn't have water to drink.
Por algún tiempo tuvimos que bajar a un río que estaba en la orilla y ahí hacíamos un hoyo para filtrar un poco de agua y con esto lavábamos nuestra ropa, incluso pues a veces llevábamos un tambo de agua para la casa.
So I remember we used to get water in a river. There was a river of sewage, and we would dig a hole by the river so that would filter the water a little bit. So we would wash our clothes there, and sometimes we would also bring some of that water home.
Y también hubo mucha enfermedad porque había unas granjas de pollo, había mucha mosca cuando nosotros llegamos, se murieron muchos niños, incluso se murieron algunos adultos porque no había higiene.
When we got there, we also had a lot of illness for children and adults. We had problems with flies. There were some chicken farms close by, and so the flies came, and so many children and adults died out of typhoid fever.
Recuerdo también que una vez tomamos el cuerpo de un niño y fuimos al Palacio Nacional para pedirle a las autoridades que nos ayudaran, pero pues de todos modos era muy difícil. Algunas veces tuvimos intentos de que la policía quiso sacarnos del lugar, pero pues la verdad es que nos pusimos fuertes y seguimos ahí viviendo.
One time, because we were desperate and we wanted help and support from the government, we took the body of one of these children that were dying downtown to the palace, and we asked the government for some help. But we didn't get help, and sometimes they actually send the police and they tried to get us out of this piece of land, and we just stood strong and remained there, but it was very difficult.
También hicimos algo que sabíamos que no era correcto. Una noche robamos el agua de una comunidad que está arriba del asentamiento y llevamos a la comunidad algunos chorros de agua para que cada familia tuviera por lo menos un poco de agua potable.
One time we also did something that was not right, and but we needed water, so we actually stole some water from a community that was higher up from where we were at night we dug some trenches and got some water to come down into our community for a few hours.
Y finalmente tuvimos la ayuda del Banco Mundial y de UNICEF. Ellos donaron a la comunidad materiales y cada familia trabajó para poder hacer algunos trabajos. Hicimos calle, también hicimos una zanja muy grande cada familia, de 15 metros de largo por 1 de ancho y 1 de profundidad, para poder tener agua en los pedazos donde estábamos cada quien.
So eventually we got some help from UNICEF and the World Bank, and they gave us enough money to start bringing some water into the community. So, but each family had to dig the trenches to put the tubes for the water. So we dug trenches of 15 meters. They were 50 meters long and 1 meter deep, and so that we could bring water.
Y esto era cuando empezamos a vivir en La Esperanza. Bueno, la colonia se llama La Esperanza y creo que le dimos un buen nombre porque nosotros en Guatemala decimos la esperanza es lo último que muere, y esto nos ayudó a seguir y a seguir. El gobierno también al final logró comprar a los dueños de los terrenos y ya nos pudieron medir un terreno de 6 metros por 10 para cada familia.
So this is how we started as a community. We named the community La Esperanza, which means hope. In Guatemala, we have a saying that says, hope is the last thing that dies. So we remain, say, luchando, which means like fighting for surviving. And eventually the government agreed to give us the land. And they measure pieces of land 10 meters by 10 meters per family. But then we could pay it. We could make payments on this land.